stuck with you, united, stuck with you and kept pushing this product even though people weren't really biting?
Well, stuck with me would be overstating it. So the way they do it is they have a new product, they try to sell it for a year or so, and then it either takes off on its own, or they put their attention on the next new product, and they let you either sink or swim on your own. So I was about to sink, because I no longer had that support, like most of the comics that don't work. It's very rare that any of these launches actually work. 1 in 5, 1 in 10, that's the best you can hope. But I wasn't done myself. And so one of the things that I had as an advantage was I had email before the public had email. And I put my email address, because of my day job, I was still working my day job at Pacific Hill. So I put my email address in the margins of the strip, which was revolutionary at the time. It sounds funny now, but nobody had email then. But the people who did have email, I mean there were some, all wrote to me. And they all said the same thing, and it's something I had not heard until that point. They said, we like Dilbert a little bit when he's at home doing generic things, which is what he mostly did. But every once in a while, when he's at work, which was not really where he was most of the time, it wasn't a workplace comic. They said, we love it when he's at work. We cut them out and we send them around. And they all said the same thing. So that's when I changed the comic to a workplace comic. So it was a big change. I got rid of all my artistic integrity. I didn't have much to begin with. And just said, well, if that's what the customers want, I'm not going to be an artist about it. I'm going to be a manufacturer, I guess. I'm going to give them what they're asking for. So that was a big step. So as soon as I made it a workplace comic, people had a reason to forward it around. It started growing on its own. And then the next big thing was the internet. So when websites became a thing, I also was early on that because of my day job again. We were doing early things with the website before people had even heard of something called the internet. Literally, people hadn't heard the word at this time. My syndicate and I decided to put it on the internet because we had nothing to lose. It was still a failing comic, so we could do things that other people couldn't do. And it was a big risk to put it on the internet because you were giving it away for free.
Right.
At the same time, other people were paying for it, and we didn't know how they would take that. Turns out they were okay with it. And having it on the internet allowed our salespeople to go in and say, look, here's a whole pile of email from people who are in your district who say they want this because they've already seen it on the internet. And then it's sold everywhere.
So this whole 5 years, you still had your day job. You were still working at Pacific Bell and drawing comics on the side because the comics really weren't paying anything.
Yeah, I was getting up at 4 a.m., drawing for a few hours, going to work, and then coming home and drawing and finishing the drawing for the rest of the night.
And you couldn't just quit your day job because the comics weren't paying anything?
For the first several years I couldn't, and for the last few years of my day job I was making enough money that I could have quit, but it became so easy to go to my day job because I didn't worry about anything, because I could quit. And I was already getting famous, so I was famous at work as well. And my coworkers actually made a deal with me that they would do my work for me, and at least in the final year or two I think. They would actually do my work for me. I could come in whenever I wanted, and the only thing that they asked of me is if they had a customer who they wanted to show our products to, that I would come in that day, because the customers were treating me like a celebrity already. So it was just a good way to sell their products.
So 6 years later, your comic strip is being picked up in major markets all across the country. It's time for you to quit your day job.
Well, it turns out I got fired.
You got fired?
Yeah. Sort of half fired, half quit. I made a deal with my boss that if they ever needed the budget for someone who did real work, just had to ask me, and I would leave. Because he was aware of the deal my coworkers had made with me that they were doing my work.
Okay.
And one day he called me in and said, I need the budget for something else, and I said, thanks. And, it was time.
Right.
The timing was okay, so I was good with it.
Well, I think I remember reading that the one thing he asked you was not to put him in a comic strip.
Yeah, that didn't work for him.
Yeah, which you did.
Yeah, he was in the comic strip almost immediately.
Almost immediately after that.
Yeah, I can't remember if I did it while I was still working for him. It was around that time.
Well, I think what was interesting about Dilbert is that before Dilbert came around, you had Peanuts, you had these various comic strips, but Silicon Valley was starting to form. The computer revolution was starting to happen, and engineering became a more serious thing. Like, I went to computer science at UC Berkeley, so it was like selling this world that I can relate to. There's now a comic strip that actually talked about it. My first job out of college was at a startup, and I was in a cubicle. And, I was writing code all day and so forth. So it was like, the timing of it was interesting, because there was nothing like it that was feeding all these people that could relate.
Yeah, one of the things I learned about humor writing, and this is the most non-obvious humor writing advice you'll ever get, and I got this from Bill Keane, who did Family Circus. And the idea is that if you write for yourself, meaning things that you think are going to be funny, then you've only written for yourself, and nobody else wants to look at it. So you have to write about other people's lives, and they will find that hilarious, even if it isn't. So you could leave out a lot of technique. If somebody says, oh, that's me, they will think that's hilarious because you talked about them. So talking about other people was actually the skill of humor, and it's the most underrated part.
So in all these years, have you ever just said, I don't feel like working this week, I'm going to miss a couple days, I'm going on vacation, I'm going to do it? It's a very interesting type of job where you have to do it yourself, and you're required to do it
Yeah, one of the things I had working for me